Girl, live your life. And that's the words that my mama say. But you won't live twice. You better make the best of every day. So I'm doing just fine, as if my name was Mary J. Walking on sunshine, and I don't care who out there throwing shade. I'm living my life. So live your life. Life. I'm living my life. So live your life. Just live your life. I ain't on no Red Bull today. I'm high off life, no artificial energy. Clocking by 9, but I think I'm calling in today. And if they cut off my lights, give me a bay, have a candlelight dinner today. Cause I'm living my life, all is fine. The trouble's inside, yeah, turbulence, but I'm enjoying my life. I'm living my life, all is fine. The trouble's inside.
Hi guys, sorry, I was trying to give you a video, but oh wow. I tried to upload the video. It will not upload for some reason. It keeps saying error. So I tried to airdrop the video to someone else's phone and upload it from there. And every time I try to do that, it keeps saying that they can't find the video. There's no videos on the phone to upload, which I know the video is on the phone and there's other videos. So I'm sorry, I am not going to be able to give you a video. The only thing I'm going to be able to do is give you the audio, even though I already recorded this video. So I'm going to go ahead and play the audio to this video. All right, here it is. Hi guys, what it is, it's your girl Cadillac. As you can see, I got on my Cadillac hoodie. I made this years ago. Painted every bit of it. I'll show you it in detail. I just got a story to tell you. This is a story time. Today is actually, well, this story time is going to be about my mother's death. Today marks 5 years since my mother passed. I guess I'm gonna go there today. It's a lot of things that I try not to remember. I block out my mind because it brings me to that hurtful place. But there are so many unresolved feelings and issues about my mother and her passing. So today, on the anniversary of her death, I'm gonna release some things, and hopefully the rest of this day I will spend it celebrating her life. My mother was a scholar. She was so into education and learning. So I'm going to continue her legacy. Okay, so I wish you could have met my mother. My mother was so incredible. My mother comes from Chicago, Illinois. Her and my father, they moved here. I do have a Draw My Life that explains all that. If you would like to check that out, I'll link that in the description box, the Draw My Life. So at a young age, she had me. Believe she had me she was 18 when she had me. She got married at 17. And our family relocated here to Florida. So my mother comes from a very rough area in Chicago, Illinois, and she always wanted better. She wanted better than what she had. And she always used to tell me, Keita, use your head for more than a hat rack. Like, I used to hate when she would say that. Like, Mom, it makes no sense. But she believed in education. And she had me really young. And then after me, years later, she in total 5 kids. So education basically was on the back burner. But she always wanted to go back to school. She did. I did find some of her things where she took classes and stuff when I was a very young child. But she came here. She worked at a grocery store, very minimum wage job, and she just wanted better. So one day, my dad encouraged her to apply at AT&T for it was a business. It was a business type job, a desk job, and this is something my mother never had. My mother never had that type of job, so she said she was discouraged and like, why would they give me a job like that? And she passed the test. She worked for AT&T for years upon years, from the early 80s all the way up until she passed. Yes, she worked for years at AT&T. So she just worked there and she built herself up, moved up. And it came to the point, and I believe it was 2015, when my little sister was almost grown. She wasn't quite grown. My mother still had that anchoring in her for education. She always wanted to go to college, and she went back. She was like 48 years old when she went back to school. She went back to school, and she decided that when she got in school, she loved it. I School for me was rough, but for her, she loved school, and she was just achieving and achieving, and she was graduating and graduating. Like, she went through her AS, and then she went through her bachelor's, and it was like I would go to visit Marcello, and I'd be like, I gotta leave because my mom's graduation. He's like, how many times your mama gonna graduate? Like, mama was doing it. Yes, she got all the way up into her master's at age 53. My mother graduated, it was October the 31st, 2015, with her master's in business. And she had all she wanted to do. She said she wanted to be a professor. She wanted to be Professor Dixon. And she wanted to open a Chick fil A so that she wanted to run a Chick-fil-A that so that her girls would always have a job. So those were her two dreams. And my mom was just so awesome. And me and her, she also wrote a business plan for us to do a t-shirt business together, because I used to hand paint the t-shirts like this one. Um, and she was like, Keita, you're so awesome. It's just you do things wrong, which I keep telling y'all there's a missing link. I don't have the missing link. I feel like I do some amazing things, but there's something missing that makes it where it doesn't all come together. So, me and my mother, we're going to do a t shirt business together. Okay, so my mother actually is the reason why I went back to school. I don't know if I ever told that story. I think I did previously, but I don't know who's been, riding with me for a while. So I don't know if you know that story. But we were at my mother's for her master's. We went out to eat with her, and my mother had a childhood friend from Chicago that came here shortly after. She didn't live in Chicago, but she came here shortly after to be, within the vicinity of my mother. But then they kind of lost contact or whatever, but they still talked. They were best friends. And this friend is all about education. She would get on the phone with you forever. So what you doing with your life? What you doing? Okay. So it happened that we're sitting at my mother's graduation, and all the younger people, she asks, so what are you going to do with your life? And they all give their answers, because when you're young, the sky is the freaking limit. There are no limits. You can do anything. It's not until you've actually started going after those dreams and failing and failing and failing that you start having, you start thinking, well, maybe I can't do that, and maybe I can't do that, and maybe that's where I am at. Because it's not that I'm here saying that I can't do it just because I haven't tried it. I've tried everything, and nothing I've tried has been successful. So I'm coming from experience, and I dust myself off and I try something else. But nothing I've done has ever succeeded and ever prevailed or anything. So I deal with those mental blockages. So she asked me, she was like, Keita, so what are you going to do? I'm like, huh? I'm like in my late 30s, mid 30s at that point. What do you mean, what am I going to do? I'm doing what I'm doing. I work at a super center. No, at that point, I was working at a theme park, but whoop de doo. And I spent most of my good years working at a super center. Um, what do you mean? I've always worked minimum wage jobs, never been able to make me ends meet. So I'm not going to do pretty much anything. I tried to do cosmetology, best in my class, and then I'm riddled with carpal tunnel and nerve damage. So it's like it's almost I start feeling like every dream I have, the devil beats me to the punch and takes it away from me before I can have it. So I pretty much don't want anything anymore. So she's like, so what are you gonna do? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back to college. I never meant that I was going back to college. I was just saying that so that they can move to the next person. So after my mom's dinner, we took pictures, and I was so proud of her, so proud. And my mom was so happy. She was like, Keita, if I could do it, you could do it, and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, mom, but things just don't work out for me. They don't work out. So end up, I decide I say I'm going back to college. I never meant it. So when that Monday came, I knew how my mother was. She was gonna ask me, and just so I hate I don't lie to my parents. I respect my parents to the utmost. So I didn't want to lie to my mom. So I had to go and research. So I was like, "Oh, mom." So I inquired on how do I re-enroll into college because I had quit college a while back because I had my daughter, and then with Marcello going to prison, and I had to just focus on how do I take care of my daughter and me. We didn't even that that was shattering him being taken because he was like actually taking care of his family. So I didn't know what to do after that. So I spent most of my time trying to, make sure my daughter had and didn't lack for anything and to take care of myself the best I could. So that meant just working overnight and struggling. That's what it was. So I left college in 2003, I think was the last time that I was on that college roster. So I had to inquire, how do I re-enroll? And it was like, well, you're still a student, but you've been gone forever, so you have to reactivate your student status. So I had to do that. It was so much back and forth. It was so many steps, and it was like, okay, now you have to apply for financial aid. And I'm like, I never meant to do all these steps. I swear I never meant to. And it kept being one step, the next step. I applied for financial aid, and it was like, well, it's kind of too late, so you may not get it to the next semester. And if it was any hold in between it, I never would have made that first step. So then the financial aid comes through. Oh, you got this amount to go to school. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to school. So it's kind of in paper, but it actually was very difficult as well because they needed my last transcripts, which my last transcripts were tied to that cosmetology school that did not exist. They turned those transcripts over to another school that no longer exists. So it was a bunch of back and forth. And then they finally found where my transcripts were. And I couldn't contact the person. I had to keep calling, keep calling. Finally, I sent an email like, can you please get me these transcripts? So it was a lot of work to even just get my foot back into college. So all of a sudden, it happens that it's the first day of school. And I'm like freaking out the first day of school. I'm in my mid 30s. I'm in class with 18, 19-year olds. I can't type. I have no skills. I've only done manual labor jobs. And my body's so riddled from these manual labor jobs. Like I used to unload trucks. I always did hard labor work. And I can't type. I have the corporal tunnel. I still have the corporal tunnel and the nerve damage. So I'm in class and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to get out of here. I wish I could just disappear. This was the wrong thing. I'm gonna do this semester and no, I'm out. This is not gonna happen. When went back to school and my mom seen me in school, she this was the first time in my life that I believe I made my mother proud. I was always the child, the one. There's one child with a parent that just can't get their life together. I'm the one that's with a prisoner. I'm the one that can't get their career right. I'm the one that can't make anything happen. I'm the one chasing dreams of music and art and nothing happens, so I'm the failure of the family. I've always been the failure. I've always been the black sheep of the family, and I've always been the one that couldn't get their life in control. Even my little sisters have far surpassed me. So I think this was the first time that my mother was proud. She was so proud of me. And she had just got out of school, so she was kind of like chuckling at me, and she was like, "See, this is why I needed help." Like I used to help my mother write her English papers, so I was awesome at English. She used to tell me, "Kita, if you can help me with my work, why can't you do college?" And I'm like, "No, mom, I can't do it." And this was the first time I made my mother proud. The first time. First time in my whole 30 something years of being on this earth, I believe I made her proud. And I went back to school. And when I went back to school, the first semester was so hard. We went through finals and I just froze and I was like, oh, I hate this. I can't believe I failed. And I ran home to my mother and was telling her what went on. And she was like, Kita, it's okay. It's probably not as bad as you think, and this and that. So I hadn't got my grade yet. And I had signed up for the new semester. And something was happening with that. They completely dropped me out of it. So I was like, that's where I was this point last year. So no, not last year, I'm so sorry. 2016. This point in 2016, I had just finished my first semester. End up I did pass, and I went home and showed my mom, and she was so proud. I showed her my little rinky dink work I did in graphic design. It was not that great. But she was so proud. She was like, Kita, see, I told you you could do it. I told you you could do it. And I signed up for the next semester and ended up that they dropped me from the class. So I hadn't told her that yet. Then I had issues like I was trying to get through school and take care of my child. My health went down. I wasn't taking care of me. I wasn't sleeping properly. I would get maybe 2, 3 hours of sleep a day on a regular. This is a regular basis, not eating. Like I would go all freaking day and I'd be like, oh, shoot, I need to eat. So not keeping track of anything. I ended up being having high blood pressure from caffeine, from coffee, from energy drinks, just a long period of time of not taking care of myself. And I was marked as pre-diabetic. So I felt like the biggest failure. Now I've let my health fail. I was so scared to let my mother know. And I was just like, I could try to turn it around. I started exercising, losing a little weight. Um, and when I went back to the doctor, they took me out of that pre-diabetic stage because I'm a little bit into it, but not all the way. So they took me out of that stage and stuff like that. So my mother, she had just graduated and she wanted to open her Chick-fil-A, but before she opened her Chick-fil-A, she wanted to get her health right. She as well had just not too long ago been diagnosed as having diabetes, and she completely dropped off her weight. She started going to this clinic where they would help her and stuff like that. She was getting her diet under control, her health under control. But my mother always had an issue with kidney stones. She would always have kidney stones. So end up she had a kidney stone that was bothering her. They told her that that kidney stone was just, it was there, but it wouldn't really do anything. But I guess as she started losing weight and her body started changing, the kidney stone started bothering her. So she had to have she wanted to have a surgery to stop the pain to pass the kidney stone. So her surgery was scheduled, and she told me, she was like, Keita, I'm going to have surgery. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like, huh? You didn't tell me. And she's like, Keita, I did tell you. I said, no, Mom. You told everyone. You didn't tell me. I didn't know you was going to a surgery. So, and the last time I seen my mother up and alive and walking would have been, I believe that would have been May 4th, because we were in martial arts. And for some reason this day I wasn't feeling going to martial arts class. Um, so my daughter was in martial arts, so I dropped her off and I said that I would pick her up. So I dropped her off, and it was in the same parking lot as a Publix, and my mother always would shop at Publix and stuff. So as I'm going up in the Publix parking lot to turn around so that I could park in front of the martial arts to wait for my daughter to come out, I park and I see my mother, and I swear I'm like at the stop sign, you know where the entrance of the grocery store is? I'm at the stop sign, and she looked like the way she looked in my windshield, like my mother was crossing like over the car to go into the Publix. But when she looked at me, it was like almost as though she didn't know who I was. Like she was in a daze. And I swear it didn't look like she was walking. It looked like she floated across my car and went into the Publix. She said the reason she was going into Publix because my little nephew wanted some ice cream, and she knew that she wanted to make sure he had his ice cream. So this was the last time I see my mother walking. Was that day at Publix? Oh no! Right after that, we came. They came home. We had food or whatever, the ice cream that my nephew wanted and stuff, and we were just at the dining room or whatever. So that was actually the last time. So my mother was due to go to the surgery May the 5th. That was her surgery date. Later that night, May the 4th, my mother used to be in her office chair. My mother had just graduated college, and I was so accustomed to my mother, her light being on in her room, and she'd be knocked out. And I'd cut a light off, and she'd be like, Kita, I'm studying. I'm like, Mom, how you studying with your eyes closed? And she'd be like, I'm studying. So she would just be laying back in her little office chair with her legs up on the bed. So that's how I remember my mom many times. Not only was she in school, she was a Sunday school teacher. She was over so many things. My mother believed in all kinds of education. My mother had racks and racks of books that she read, relationship books, how to make the family better, budgeting. If there was a book about it, my mother was reading it. That's how my mother was. And she believed in education like 100%. So even after her just getting her master's, she was even talking of going back and getting her doctorate, degree. But she just wanted to get her health in order at that time. So I'm sitting there. I walk past her door, and I see her in her office chair. And for me, it felt like like something just wasn't quite right. And I just see her there, and I wanted in my heart to say, Mom, are you okay? Like, is everything, how's things going? I felt something uneasy. And I didn't, which I regret because she had her surgery the next day. I didn't say anything. I went back out into the living room and I left the light on for her because I knew she would say that she was studying or she wasn't asleep. So I go in the living room, and what I did forget to tell you, before, things were so crazy leading up to my mother's passing. It was like, it felt like I was, like, so many things in my life was going wrong. My car, I had went to Mardi Gras with my nephew. I took him to Mardi Gras, and I was trying to get out of there because there was people drinking. I'm like, no, let me get home. Let me just get out of here and get home. So we get to the house, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad to be home. People acting crazy. And I was about to stop and get my nephew McDonald's because he wanted something to eat. I was like, no, I just want to go home. Let's just get home. I parked my car in front of my house. I go into the that so I go into the house. I get my nephew out. We go in, and I'm laying down on the couch, and I'm just laying there before I go to sleep because I'm just going over things back and forth, thinking about life, how life is just ugh. And I hear boom, like it sounded like rockets or something was going on. It was so freaking loud, so loud. And I jump up. I'm scared to even look out the window. I jump up, and then my mom said, "Kita's car, Kita's car." And we look out, the a drunk driver. This is what we found out later. A drunk driver plowed into my car, totaled my car, pushed my parked car 10 feet back, totaled my car. And where I had just parked my car, if I hadn't just parked my car there, they would have totaled my mother's car because they would have came up, totaled my mother's car, and possibly the car would have ran up into the house. The way it was like my whole vehicle just blocked it. A drunk driver. And needless to say, y'all believe in justice. I don't believe in justice because that person got away. A drunk driver, he got a tap on the wrist, and I had to pay for a whole new car that I just had paid that car off. And he got a tap on the wrist. So who knows what happened with that? But the law seems to work in favor of the people that aren't following the laws. So totaled my car. It was so much going on, but it was like we had just parked that car. Like we could have been there, and I could have been getting my nephew out as this drunk driver comes and plows into the freaking car. So that had just happened. It was just so many weird, crazy things going on around the house. Like, going on in our life. Like, it was crazy. So that just happened. And I was trying to find another car to get back and forth to work. And I'm still not understanding why all these bad things are happening to me. I try to be a good person. I try my best to be a good person. And it seems like the more I try to be good, the more bad happens to me. So that had just happened previously. So my mother was so worried and riddled with that because the car insurance, and there was another accident with my sister. So she had two accidents at once on her insurance. She was just worried. It was so much going on. So that day, back to that day, I come in and I see her there, and I wanted to say, Mom, are you okay? And I didn't. And I totally regret that. Totally regret that. So I go out, and I sit on the couch. I lay on the couch because that's where I used to lay. I would stay there on the couch or whatever. So so I'm sitting there. Actually, before I laid down, I was doing work and I was watching Love and Hip Hop, and I hear crying, like, like that. Like, what the heck? Who's crying? So I look around the house. I go in my sister's room. She's laughing. She'd be up all times of night laughing, watching old 90s sitcoms. So she's laughing. Look at my other sister's room. I look in the room where my dad is. Okay. I go to my mom's office. She's just laying in that chair. I'm like, dang. So I go back to where I was at. And I hear, I'm hearing crying. I'm like, what the? Why am I hearing crying? Who is crying? So I ask her, are you crying? Like, are you okay? Like, what's going on? And I just hear crying in the house. That's crazy. And that's when I walked through and I checked on my mom and she was sitting there, but she was asleep. It wasn't crying. So I remember the next day she woke me up early, early, early. So this would be May the 5th. I think I got my days mixed up because that was the night of May the 4th. No, that's correct. May the 5th. Yeah, so that's correct. So the morning of May the 5th, early, super early in the morning, sun hadn't even came up. And my mom woke me up off the couch and she was like, Keita, give me a hug. My mom always had that soft voice. She's like, Keita, give me a hug, just in case I'm going into surgery. But this was an outpatient surgery. All she's doing is passing a kidney stone. Outpatient surgery should be done in a couple hours. So she's like, Keita, I'm just giving you a hug. So I gave her a little hug like this. I hugged. I was so sleepy. I just hugged her like this. And then I said, okay, mom. All right. And I laid back down. Hours later, like when I woke up and all of that, about 8, 9 o'clock, I'm like, oh, mom should be out of this surgery because she left early. Like early, she should be out of surgery by now. So I called my dad and I'm like, is mom, you know, and we got a message from my dad, mom's not doing so good. Huh? What do you mean? Mom's not doing so. What does that mean? I don't know what that means. Not gonna worry. I've trained myself to not even worry because I always worry for the worst. And bad things do happen. Don't get me wrong. It'd be bad, but it's never as worse as I worried about. So I'm like, okay, so so we hear that she's not breathing so good. Huh? She's not breathing so good. What do you mean? Okay. Later that day, we get the call that we can come down to where to the hospital. Mom, mom is responsive and all of that. So I go to the hospital and I sit there with her like all day. And other family members came and left or whatever, and I just sat there all day. But what I regret about it is I sat there on my laptop. So I'm there with my mom, but I'm on this freaking laptop trying to type a book that Marcello wrote, trying to type it up and edit it. Man, if you can go back and replay time. So I'm just sitting there with my mom, and then it gets to the point where she's in so much pain, the pain medicine and stuff's not helping her. But for a while, when we first got there, we all got to talk to her, and she started calling people and stuff like that. And we thinking she went through a bad stage and she's okay and she's gonna come home. And so I stayed all that day. Okay, so You would think after a year of trying to be a YouTuber, I would have this all worked out. But no, my phone just overheated. So I got to finish it with audio. Oh, I'm trying so bad to just put videos out, but it always reverts back to audio. Okay, so to pick up where I left off, so I'm in the hospital with my mother. I'm basically just me and my mother for hours, and I'm trying to sit there with her, and then also I'm working on this book, which that became a big regret in my life. I feel like if I wasn't working on that book, I could have tended more to my mother, or I would have paid more attention, or it's something that I missed because I was in that book. Like, it's crazy. So, my sister said that she was going to go get clothes and she was going to spend the night with mom. I didn't spend the night, I stayed late, but I knew I had to work in the morning. So, when my sister came back, I left. And the thing was that I didn't know that was the last time that I would see or talk to my mother. I didn't know that. I would have stayed. I never would have left. Never would have left had I known that. But my mother's last words to me was, Keita, get home safe. I said, Mom, I'm about to go. I'll see you in the morning after I get off of work. She said, get home safe and thank you for coming. Those were the last two words the last two phrases my mother said to me. So I went home and I made sure I called her because I knew she would worry, if she didn't know I got home. I said, Mom, I'm at home. All of a sudden, I go to sleep and middle of the night, get to the hospital right now, right now. And we all rush, we get to the hospital. We get to the hospital and they said she's not doing good at all. She's in an induced coma and she's in ICU. Crazy. So we sit there all morning. Then they say we can come in and see her. I go in to see her and they tell me she could hear me. I'm like, no, she can't. Her face, my mother was very light skinned, had a light complexion, and all around her mouth was like bluish tone. And I'm like, she can't hear me. Y'all say she can hear me. She can't hear me. And I said, Mom, this is Keita. I love you, Mom. I love you, Mom. I'm so sorry. I love you. I feel like I could have prevented all of this. Like it was something I should have been able to do. I should have been able to get the nurses to watch her better. I should have been able to. We all talked to her, and then we leave. They told us she can understand us. We go back out into a little waiting room, and we're out there, and I hear something say cold blue. And I'm like, I don't know what cold blue is, so I'm googling it. What is cold blue? What is it? And when I see what cold blue is, I'm like, oh my God. They call us to the room. They were trying to revive her. That is a horrible image left in my head. Them trying to revive her. And when they couldn't, they said we can go in there and see her. I went in. Oh boy. I went in there and I rubbed her feet. I wanted to remember how her feet felt, how her feet looked. I rubbed her hands. I grabbed her hand. I rubbed her hand. Mm, her hands look like my hands, just a shade lighter. I rubbed her hands. I rubbed her feet. I rubbed her hair. They snipped a piece of her hair and allowed me to keep it. My mom had the nicest, silkiest hair. Beautiful hair. Beautiful woman. And I cried out. I was supposed to do her hair. I was supposed to do her hair because the last week before she asked me to do a roller set in her hair. That was the time that me and her got to bond, was when I was roller setting her hair and we would talk. And that week before, me and my daughter Money had went to Wet and Wild. They were about to close down. Wet and Wild has been a staple in Florida for years, but they were about to close down. So it was so cold, but we went in this ice cold weather to Wet and Wild because our passes were about to expire and there would no longer be a Wet and Wild. So when we got out of that ice cold water, for some reason it tired us out. So when my mother came for me to do her hair, to roller set her hair, um, I fell asleep and I didn't get up. And later that night, I got up and she said, "Oh, I tried to do it myself. I just did it myself. But people like it better when you do it." And she said she made some spaghetti and then I want some spaghetti. And I'm like, "Mom, why didn't you just wake me up? I would have got up. I would have got up to do your hair." So I didn't do her hair the last time. So it hurt me so bad. I just kept rubbing her hair and I'm like, I was supposed to do her hair. I was supposed to do her hair. So I got the lock of her hair, rubbed her feet, her hands. I just wanted to remember her, remember how they looked, remember how her hands, her skin felt. But I couldn't see her like that no longer. So I made my way back to where the family was. To my surprise, there was nobody left there. There wasn't anybody there. So I went back to the room. My dad was there. And my dad said he wasn't going to leave my mom's side. And I couldn't sit with her like that no longer. So I made my way out the hospital. I said, I got to go home. I got to go home. I can't stay here. I sat down in the lobby of the hospital by myself, just crying. I don't know where my daughter was. I think she came down there later. And I said, I got to get home. And my dad was like, please just drive safe. And I was like, I got to go home. So I drove all the way home. Not, it felt like everything I had inside of me, like my guts were ripped out. Like I was a hollow person. Like I couldn't feel anything. I just felt hollow. And it was some type of Beyonce song on. I do remember that. And that morning when the sun came up before she passed, it was so beautiful. It was the brightest, sunniest, beautiful day. And from where we were in the hospital seeing that sunrise. It was so beautiful. But I was gonna take a picture, but I was like, no, I don't ever want to remember this day. So I didn't take the picture. That ended up being the worst day. My mother went in for an outpatient surgery. Something went wrong. The doctors left and never came back. And when they came back, it was too late. My mother died at 53 years old on May the 6th, 2016. 6 months after graduating with her master's. The end of my first semester. Had I waited, my mother never would have seen me go back to school. And I quit. I After that happened, days later, I withdrew from those classes, and it was like I was trying to take my name off that roster, and the phone for some reason wouldn't do it. It wouldn't respond. It wouldn't allow me to do it. So I stayed in the classes, and I think I did take that semester off though. And then after that, I kind of went back to school. And for me, school was a big distractor. I didn't have to think those, like, I can think the beautiful memories of my mother. But when I go back to times like that day and certain memories and feeling like I could have prevented things, those are the ones that send me on a downhill spiral. So I try not to think or feel those feelings. I block them. I This is probably the first time I'm telling somebody besides Marcello. But yeah, so school became a big distractor in my life. And that also plays into why I had to excel so much. And a lot of times I only stayed in school on the strength that I made my mother proud. That one time I made her proud. And that's why I stayed in school. And that's why I finished. And what you probably don't know, because for the last 2 weeks, well, 2 weeks before, I wasn't posting because I was so overly busy. And then this last week, I just went back to posting because there feels like every part of my life is just crumbling beneath me. The situation with Marcello is getting worse upon worse. A bad situation, which I do have a video about that happened, and we're no longer able to visit each other. So it just seems like everything is just like life is caving in on me. I don't see a brighter day, honestly. I fight for that brighter day, but I don't see it coming. So, but prior to that week, I had graduated. I haven't gotten to get my graduation video out, but I graduated. And at my graduation, I finally walked across that stage. I wanted to share it with you guys, but I got so sidetracked with my life crumbling beneath me that I wasn't able to, get that out. But thank you, everyone that is trying to help me and trying to, because I don't take you for granted. I appreciate you so much. It's your girl, Cadillac.
You see the woman I am, this is the woman you work. They say I'm beauty and brains, I say I get it from her. You tell me right from wrong, you see you live by example. You know I can't feel your shoes, but I show not trying your sandals. See the woman I am, this cause the woman you work. They say I'm beauty and brains, I see you get it from her. You taught me right from wrong, you see you live by example. You know I can't feel your shoes, but I show not trying your sandals. Yeah, so much going on. I don't even know if I can hold on. It's your girl Kelly, 10 toes down. Yeah. Life's about a bitch and then you die. You work 2 jobs trying to make it, gotta survive. Her life's a little sweeter, hanging down on one knee, crying out, Lord, can you please tell me why? I said life's about a bitch and then you die. You work 2 jobs trying to make it, gotta survive. Life's a little sweeter, hanging down on one knee, crying out, Lord, can you please tell me why? I used to think the limit was the sky. Now call me Chicken Little, seems the sky is falling on mine. And my heart's been broken since I lost the love of my life. So many hopes and dreams been washed away in the times of my life. Man, I miss my mama and I hate the fact she died. Stupid ass doctors playing with people's lives. And the judge know better, they sentenced my poo to life. So many trials in my life made me want to bury my head and die. Life's about a bitch and then you die. You work 2 jobs trying to make it, gotta survive. Life's a bittersweet, hanging down on one knee, crying out, Lord, can you please tell me why? I said life's about a bitch and then you die. You work 2 jobs trying to make it, gotta survive. Life's a bittersweet, hanging down on one knee, crying out, Lord, can you please tell me why?